Today, I'm going to be expanding my block ranking to include all of the new and changed blocks in Terraria as of 1.4.5. New rankings, objective and subjective tier lists lie up ahead, so let's jump straight into it. Greetings friends, Khaios here. Last year, I ranked every single block in Terraria in two different ways. I made a list of subjective rankings, just placing blocks in order of how much I like or dislike them, but I wanted to try and make an objective tier list where I ranked blocks based on how many functions they have in the game. Today, I'm going to be updating a few of those blocks, and I'll be ranking all of the new blocks both objectively and subjectively. But before we get into that, we're on the march towards the next milestone of 400,000 subscribers. If you'd like to help tell the AI overlord that I'm doing a good job, and if you'd like to help us reach that goal, be sure to leave a like and comment, and subscribe so that you're less likely to miss my future content. Now, I'm not going to cover every single block in today's ranking, as most of my choices have not changed since the previous video. So if you'd like to see all of the blocks ranked, I will leave a link to the previous ranking video in the description. I'll also leave a link to the Google Sheet where I have all of the block rankings listed. Let's get started by updating old blocks that have had their rankings change in 1.4.5. Before I start talking about the objective tier list, let me remind you all how I ranked blocks in the past. I made a point system where a point is given for each of the following. The block can be used to craft walls, craft non-building items, craft other blocks, craft furniture or other placeables, if the block creates a biome, if it creates particles, if it's animated, or if it produces light or glows. I also gave a point for each special uncommon feature that a block might have. For example, preventing fall damage or hurting a player on contact or anything more. The points are then added together to give a block its rank. If a block has 0 points, it is placed in F tier. Blocks with 1 or 2 points are D tier, 3 or 4 points are C tier, 5 or 6 points are B tier, 7 or 8 points are A tier, and anything that gets 9 points or higher is S tier. So with the 1.4.5 update, several old blocks got new tier placements in the objective tier list. Let's take a look at all of the new rankings of old blocks. First off, all 6 colors of Team Block. In the past, they didn't receive a single point, landing them squarely in F tier. Now, however, they could be used in the Shimmer to produce the new Dual Team Blocks of the same colors, which means all 6 of these blocks gain a single point and are now promoted from F tier to D tier. The next batch of blocks all get promoted from D tier to C tier. Pine Tree Block can now be used to craft Pine Wood, which is a different block, giving it another point. Spike gets the same treatment, as it can now be used to craft Spike Block. Sun Plate can now be shimmered into Moon Plate, granting it another point as well. And Demonite Brick now has a furniture set added to it, so it also joins the others in being promoted from D tier to C tier. If you're wondering why Crimtane did not get a promotion, it's because it was already in C tier. It did gain an extra point for the furniture set that was added to it, however, it was not enough points to upgrade it to B tier. Lastly, we do have 2 blocks that promote from C to B tier. Snow Block, which already had points for being used to craft other blocks, walls, non-building items, as well as creating a biome, now has its own furniture set, so it gains another point, boosting it up in rank. The same goes for Ethereum Brick, which has a few special properties, but wasn't used to craft anything other than walls before now, as it now has its own furniture set as well. No older blocks get promoted to A tier or S tier, so that concludes our objective tier changes of old blocks. My subjective tier list is not nearly as analytical. I just pick blocks that I like and I don't like, giving my personal opinion on how I think the block should be ranked. There are some changes to old blocks in this update, and they're all good. Firstly, I want to talk about inactive and active stone block. When I ranked them a year ago, I figured these were completely without use because of actuators, so I ranked them F tier. Since then, however, I have learned that we can actually double actuate these blocks, meaning we can deactivate the block, which does everything that an actuator does, but then we can actuate it again with said actuator, causing it to get even darker. This is the only block in the game that is capable of doing this, so I'll be promoting it in ranking. That said, it's still a pretty limited texture, and getting a slightly darker stone isn't super helpful, so I'll promote the inactive and active stone blocks from F tier to C tier. Next up are Bubblegum Block and Spider Nest Block. In my original tier list video, I placed both of these in F tier because I didn't really find them all too useful, and they don't look the best. However, after my tier list video dropped, some viewers pointed out how well they work when blended with stone, and I can't help but agree. So while neither of these blocks have changed, my opinion has. These blocks move from F tier to B tier. There's another formerly F tier block that I'm promoting. I used to hate Pine Tree Block because I didn't like how it didn't blend with anything, and I really didn't like the way that it looked. In 1.4.5, however, it got a complete texture overhaul, and it can be used to make a new block, an amazing wall, and a full set of furniture. The new texture looks great, and I'll actually be building trees with it now. So Pine Tree Block easily gets upgraded from F tier to A tier for me. The only reason I'm not promoting it to S tier is because it doesn't blend in the way that I would like it to with other blocks. If it blended more like other wood blocks do, it would be a lot more helpful. The last old block to get a new promotion is Lizard Brick. It was an okay block that I didn't really have a ton of use for in the past. It had niche build cases, particularly for its hardness, but ultimately I set it in D tier. This update, it underwent a few changes, which have changed the way I look at it entirely. It got an updated sprite, which makes the skulls and the brick look more interesting. It looks great, but that's not the main reason I'm promoting it. The big reason is because it can now grow jungle grass and jungle vines on top of it. In fact, it's the only brick in the game that can grow any sort of grass or vine. It makes me wish we had things like ruined dungeon brick or something along those lines that would do this for other grass types and other vine types, but this is amazing. I can now have a ruined castle with a few pieces of white or gray painted lizard brick that have grass or vines growing from it and not have to place dirt or mud, which looks fantastic. I'm promoting this from D tier to A tier. The only reason I'm not putting it in S tier is because the brick pretty much has to be painted in order for it to be used, and when you paint a block, any grass or vines that grow from it will also be painted that color. So in order to build with this, I have to grow the plants first, then paint the block, which makes it slightly frustrating. If we had a gray brick that grew vines and didn't need paint, it would easily be S tier for me. Finally, there's one block I'm actually going to downgrade slightly. If you're a veteran of the channel, you will know that one of my oldest favorite blocks in the game was sandstone, specifically when it was painted gray. I used to use this a ton to build caves due to its unique shape and its ability to appear like stalactites and stalagmites. The biggest issue with sandstone is that it would make a desert when used in high quantities, which is why I ranked it A tier in the past. But now, it's time for me to retire the late great sandstone. Times change. We now have Boulder Block, which blends into an amazing texture with Stone Block, but even more important, we have the Mighty Tidy, which gives us every single type of stalactite, stalagmite, icicle, hanging web, and so on, including sandstone stalactites. That item blows the texture of sandstone out of the water, so I simply won't use my old favorite block as much as I used to. It's still a really good looking block with a unique texture, so I'm only downgrading it from A tier to B tier. Now with the old blocks out of the way, it's time to rank the new ones, starting with my objective tier list. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up. Only 6 blocks ended up in the F tier, though they're all kind of the same. Dull team blocks of all 6 colors ended up with 0 points. They can't be used to craft anything, and they have no special features. It's ironic that in the old tier list, team blocks were F tier, but they got upgraded thanks to the addition of another F tier block. I have more thoughts about these blocks, but I'll save them for my subjective tier list. The largest batch of new blocks ended up in D tier when it comes to ranking them on my point-based system, which is also ironic because I love most of these blocks. Feywood, Easter Block, Fallen Star Block, Gothic Brick, Hallowed Brick, Boulder Block, Flinksfur Block, Office Block, Librarian Block, Harpy Block, and Forbidden Block all scored only a couple of points because they're used to craft walls and furniture sets. None of them have any special features or wiring capabilities, so despite how good they look, based on points alone, they end up in D tier. There are a few new blocks in D tier that have unique features though. Decorative Cobweb looks like normal cobweb, but it doesn't slow players down and it doesn't break when players run through it or attack it. It is, as it says, simply decorative. Another interesting block that is in this tier is Cannonball. It isn't used to craft anything, it functions as a block normally would. However, when you hammer it, instead of sloping the block into angles, it shifts its position. It even has a slightly larger image than the 1x1 tile that it occupies. And to my knowledge, it is the only block in the game that appears slightly bigger than it actually is. The last addition to this rank is an interesting one. Toybreaker Brick is a unique looking block that isn't used to craft anything else, but it does have a very unique property. Any toy that comes into contact with it will instantly break. This applies to the quad racer drone, the wall racer car, but it also applies to things like the beach ball, football, all of the kites, and as of a recent hotfix, it even applies to golf balls. It's a very unique block, but still only ends up in D tier in the point-based system. Moving on to C tier, we have a handful of new blocks. Moonplate, Pinewood, and Spike Block all have full furniture sets, they can craft walls, and they're used to craft other blocks. As Moonplate can go back to Sunplate, Pinewood can craft Pine Tree blocks, and Spike Block can craft Sharp Spike Block, which is another block that ends up in C tier. While Sharp Spike Block doesn't have a furniture set, it does damage players on contact and causes the bleed debuff. Aquarium Block has a wall, furniture set, and it is animated with the moving water effect, giving it enough points to land in this tier as well. While Shimmerfall Block does not have a furniture set, it still secures C tier because of its ability to produce light, it can craft walls, and it is animated. Rainbow Cloud, like other clouds, negates fall damage, giving it a point, but it also gets points for the fact that it glows, and it has what I would consider an animated color pattern. Lava Cloud doesn't have any crafting options, but it also glows, it also has an animated lighting effect, and it produces the ugliest lava rain particles I've ever seen. The only thing keeping it out of B tier is the lack of Lava Cloud wall. Same goes for the last C tier block, Star Cloud, which has particles, produces light, and prevents fall damage. The unique feature, however, is that it only produces light and particles during nighttime. I think it'd be interesting to have even more day-night dependent blocks. As for B tier, there's only one new block that landed here. Jellyfish is the highest ranking of the new blocks, at least in the point-based system. It makes a wall, it has a furniture set, the block is animated, and the block even produces light. What sets it above all of the others is that it has an added special trait. The color of the light that it produces will change whenever you paint the block. I'll talk about that more in my subjective ranking list, but that brings Jellyfish to 5 points, landing it in B tier. And that's it for the new blocks in my objective tier ranking. None of them scored enough points to get A or S tier, but that's not really shocking, given that only 3 blocks in the game got A tier and only 1 block is S tier. That is totally different in my subjective tier list, however, as I rank most of these much higher than the objective ranking did. Let's take a look. Once again, starting at the bottom, this is actually the first time that my subjective tier list agrees with my objective one. Usually I don't have any F tier blocks in my subjective tier list that were also F tier blocks in my objective list, but now I do. I put all 6 of the Dull Team block colors in F tier. Why did I rank them so much lower than the normal team blocks, which I placed in B tier? Well, because frankly, I don't get the point of these. They're not much darker than team blocks, so there's a minute hue change at best. I would give them B tier with the other team blocks, except there's one glaring flaw. With team blocks, what makes them so helpful is that they do not blend with each other. While faded team blocks don't blend with each other, they do blend with the normal team blocks of the same color. For example, faded green team block blends with green team block. This makes them even more useless. Instead of giving us more options of team blocks that we could stack in unique ways without them blending together, because they all look the same anyway, anything that we could use a faded team block for, we could just use a normal one. So for now, these are F tier. However, if they ever stop blending with normal team blocks, I will bump them up to B tier. The D tier and C tier are going to go by very quickly, as there's not any blocks in them. That's right, I liked all of the rest of the new blocks so much that I didn't place a single one of them in the lower tiers of my ranking system. Which means we can jump straight to B tier. On the low end of it, I place Office Block. It's got a unique texture, but it's a bit dark and not a texture that I find myself using a lot. Same goes for Rainbow Cloud, which is one of the few rainbow things that I like, but I still only use it in very niche cases. Shimmerfall Block will also be pretty niche. I'll use it more often than things like Sandfall Block, but not as often as Waterfall Block, so I ranked it in between. Moonplate ends up here for similar reasons. I'll basically only use it in specific situations and mostly just as single blocks, as I love the way that looks, but large amounts of it just aren't really my style. Fallen Star Block is great, but I didn't give it A tier because it is visually pretty similar to Forbidden Block, and frankly, I just like Forbidden Block a lot more. The last two blocks in B tier might surprise you. Easter Block, which I do really like, didn't quite make A tier, though it was close. I like using it as a stone accent, as I covered in my stone block palette video, but I have one issue with it. It's a tiny bit on the light side. I wish it was a slightly darker shade. I know that's not going to happen because that would ruin the pastel look of the Easter theme, but that is the reason I'm keeping it in this tier. Librarian Block also ends up here. I love the walls and furniture. I can't express that enough. If I was ranking walls and furniture in this video, they would be S+ tier. But just the block? I'm rarely going to use the block itself, as it's just not what I need. I just don't really want to build with books. So B tier it is. Now let's take a look at my personal A tier picks. I have even more new blocks in this tier than I did in the previous one. Feywood is an amazing new wood block with a very nice red mushroom cap over the top. I always love having new wood options, especially with unique textures like this one, which is why I also put pine wood in here. It's another great looking block that looks like a log with a unique V-shaped pattern when used in bulk. It's another great wood choice deserving of the rank. Star Cloud is also A tier. I almost stuck it in B tier, but the fact that it produces a new particle for us to build with, and one that only appears at night, is reason enough for me to place it in A tier. It's a very unique block, and I just have to reward that. Same goes for Cannonball. Couple the fact that this block has a slightly larger appearance, and it is another perfectly rounded block option, with the fact that it shifts its position when it's sloped, make it an A tier pick. Forbidden Block is a fantastic looking golden block option, and I love the hieroglyphic texture of it. It looks great, and there should be little doubt as to why I placed it in this tier. I feel the same way about Harpy Block. It's not something that I'll use as a primary material, but it works really well when you're building a roof with large shingles. I'll cover that in a roof tutorial in the near future. And it would pair decently with Flink's Fur Block, which goes well in this tier because it takes paint really well and it works fantastically on the inside of houses as a carpet option. Finally, to wrap up A tier, we have two entries that I almost made S tier. I was on the fence about it and they landed on this side. Lava Cloud is possibly one of the most amazing blocks I've ever seen in the game, especially with that lava lightning rolling throughout the cloud. It looks absolutely phenomenal. But then it shows its ugly side. The particles it produces are some of the most hideous, distracting, annoying little things I've ever seen. I've always hated the rain cloud particles, and these are far, far worse to my eyes. So we have an S tier block with F tier particles. It's crazy. Sure, I can use echo blocks to prevent the particles from appearing, but I shouldn't have to. I'm going to punish that block for this atrocity and leave it in A tier. And frankly, it's lucky I didn't put it even lower. To wrap up A tier, we have Gothic Brick. I love the way that this block looks, and I would give it S tier, but frankly, it's just too dark. It's decent enough when I use white paint with it, but even then it's fairly dark, and there's no way to get it brighter than that. It's a great looking block with a lot of unique uses. It's just a shame that we can't get a better look at those awesome textures in all of that darkness. Let's end the video on a high note with the 7 blocks that I ranked S tier. Toybreaker Brick was also one that was sitting on the fence, but it ended up falling on the side of S tier. To be honest, I think it is ugly as sin. It's fine in small amounts and it might have some occasional use in decoration, but it does some janky stuff when it tries to blend. Mostly, it's ranked this high because of its usefulness. It was going to be A tier until they added the ability for it to break golf balls, on top of all of the other toys that it can break, so now it is a very useful block for mini golf, adventure maps, and mini games. Aquarium block was also on the fence. I love the animation of it, but I'm not a huge fan of the coral texture at the bottom, as I don't usually want the coral. The reason this ended up in S tier is because it is a very forgiving block in that it blends with a lot of things. Given the high number of blocks that it blends with, you can line the bottom of this with a ton of different blocks to get rid of the coral. Plus, when you place a line of aquarium blocks, it looks like pipes with flowing water, which is just great, earning its spot in this rank. Decorative cobweb? Amazing. I love it. We've been asking for unbreakable cobwebs for years, and we finally have it. So placing it here is a no-brainer for me. Another no-brainer is jellyfish block. It looks great, it has a fun animation, it crafts a really nice furniture set, and it can add a lot of life to our underwater builds. Plus, the lighting works like glowing mushroom, which is great. The light color changes based on how we paint the jellyfish. The colors all do what you would expect, except for negative paint, which makes the block look yellow, but the light produced is white. But what I find more helpful is how the neutral paints work with it. White paint produces a bright light, gray paint makes a slightly dimmer light, black paint makes a very dim light, and shadow paint produces a light that is barely visible. It is very, very handy. Sharp Spike also earns this tier for a few reasons. It looks great, and it's another block option that can hurt players. It even does more damage than a normal spike block does, putting it on par with wooden spike, but it's accessible much earlier in the game, and it has a unique appearance. My only gripe with this block is that it doesn't have a wall that uses that really awesome rusted metal grate texture found in the center of the block. Its sister, Spike Block, is also an easy S tier, as it's one of my favorite new block textures in the game. It has a very helpful rusted metallic appearance. It would be great to have a lot more rusted metals in the game. If you don't like it looking rusted, however, that's an easy fix too. Slap some gray paint on it and it will look exactly the same without rust coloration. Last but not least, we have the amazing Boulder block. I've been gushing about this block since the update dropped, so it's probably nobody's surprise that that's at the top of my S tier list. It's my new favorite stone texturizer, and for that reason alone, it secured a slot in my S tier. It is a very simple block that looks okay on its own, just like stone block does, but when you combine them together, it is absolutely amazing. Now, before you click off the video, don't forget that I'm still working with 86th to bring you all Terraria merch using my link in the description and pinned comment. If you check out with the code Khaios10, you'll get a 10% discount on your order, and if you purchase $35 or more of Terraria merch, you'll even get a free Vortex Helmet keychain in your package. If merch isn't your thing, but you still want to help the channel out, be sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments what you all thought of this tier list. Do you agree? Disagree? I'd love to know. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach our goal of 400,000 subscribers. A special thanks to my biggest supporters from the month, Kasu and Slathozar Porb. And be sure to check out my channel artist, MythicalWater, linked in the description below. Thank you all very much for watching. Be back soon with a new video. Happy building.